Alright, welcome to the second lesson under reduction and how we test it under exam. Now we're going to be working via special angles. And as I say, I know you're special and you're cute, but I also assume you know your special acute angles. Ne? Those would be 30, 45 degrees and 60 degrees. That's what you're going to be using to solve these problems. Look at problem 1. They gave me 210. Which is bigger than 90, cos 400, bigger than 360, negative angle, and cos 120. So my objective is to make sure all of these angles are special angles and acute. So there, 210 falls in the third quadrant, can be written as 180 plus 30 degrees. 30, special angle. Cos 400, there I'm taking 360 away because it's bigger than 360, so 360 plus 40. Sine negative angle falls in the fourth quadrant, and the fourth quadrant sine is negative, so that simply becomes negative sine 50, and 120 would become 180 minus 60 gives me 120. You see they have brought 30 and 60 in, they are my special angles. So if I simplify, 180 plus 30, third quadrant, sine is negative, negative sine 30. There, 360 plus 40 goes back to the first quadrant. So cos is positive, it stays cos 40. Yeah, 50 and 40, I assume if you add them together, you can see they're 90. So I can change sine to cos and make it 40 by saying negative sine 90 minus 40, which gives me 50. And there, 180 minus 60, second quadrant, cos is negative, comes negative cos 60. So now I'm left with negative sine 30, cos 40 on top. 90 minus falls in the first quadrant, there sine is positive, right? But 90 changes sine to cos, so it simply becomes negative cos 40, and there I have negative cos 60. Cos 40 and cos 40 cancels. Negative divided by negative is positive, but positive times negative stays negative. So in short, I just said sine 30, negative half. Cos 40 and cos 40 cancelled, and negative times negative stay positive, and the cos of 60 is half. And I assume you know anything divided by itself will always give me 1. So negative divided by positive gave me negative 1. Right, so hope you follow. Let's look at the next problem, problem number 2. Right, so now they gave me sine negative 10, sine 240, 10 squared 315, sine negative 225, cos 440, cos 135. So sine and negative angle fall in the fourth quadrant, so that becomes negative sine 10. In the fourth quadrant, sine is negative. 240, I remember I'm solving via special angles. So 180 plus 60, 60 being a special angle, give me 240. So that is our right, 240. For 10, remember the square, as I said previously, we can take out. Bring in a special angle, 360 minus 45 gives me 315. So 45 degrees, also special angle. Sine negative 225, now instead of trying to figure out, write it as a negative angle with the negative reduction formula, I just treat that as being in the fourth quadrant, and in the fourth quadrant sine is negative, but 225 now I can write as 180 plus 45 degrees, which is a special angle. Cos 440, any angle bigger than 360, we always remove 360 first, right? So that's cos 360 plus 80, and cos 135 become cos 180 minus 45, which gives me 135. So 10 degrees there, and there you see I have 80. So 10 plus 80 would give me 90. So that in theory means that cos, and that can be written as cos. So there's sine 10, I write as sine 90 minus 80. So anything that's not a special angle given will generally be in such a way where we will use the cofunctions and we cancel them. So just take note of that. No? Right, so minus sine 90 minus 80. There are sine 180 plus 60. Tan 360 minus 45, fourth quadrant, negative tan 45. Squared outside. 180 plus 45, third quadrant, sine become negative, but that negative times this negative gives me positive sine 45. Cos 360 plus 80 means we go back to where we started in the first quadrant. So that simply becomes cos 80. Right, and there cos 180 minus 45, second quadrant, becomes negative cos 45. So there, 90 minus 80, first quadrant, but the 90 changes sign to cos, so I have negative cos 80. 180 plus 60 falls in the third quadrant. The third quadrant sign is negative, so that becomes negative sine 60. There squared, negative times negative become positive, gives me tan squared 45. There's sine 45, cos 80, and that stays negative cos 45. So cos 80 and cos 80 cancel, right? But you see on top negative times negative would become positive. Sine 60, square root 3 over 2. Tan 45, 1 squared. Sine 45, 1 over square root 2 times cos 45 comes 1 over square root 2, but it is negative. So on top I'm left with square root 3 over 2. If I multiply at the bottom, 1 times negative 1 becomes negative 1. Square root 2 times square root 2 becomes 2. Change this division line to multiplication, so that is 1 over 2 will become 2 over 1, but remember it is negative. So square root 3 times 2 divided by 2, the 2's cancel and I'm left with negative square root 2. So hope you enjoy. It's quite a long lesson, still 3 problems to go, but I want to put them all in one go and make sure you practice. Pause, write each one down, try to solve it so that you improve. Right, so problem number 3, I have cos negative 225 sine 135 plus sine 330 divided by tan 225. As I said, we have to take out special angles and make them acute. So the cos negative angle would become positive because in fourth quadrant, but 225 can be written as 180 plus 45. Sine 135 can be rewritten as sine 180 minus 45, which gives me 135 and 45 special angle. 330, I assume it now falls in the fourth quadrant. In the fourth quadrant, we will say 360 minus 30, 30 again, special angle. Those two subtracted gives me 330. 225, tan 180 plus 45 degrees. Right, now if I simplify, cos 180 plus 45, third quadrant. Third quadrant, only tan is positive, so cos becomes negative cos 45. Sine 180 minus 45 fall in the second quadrant, and only sine is positive there, so therefore that becomes sine 45. 360 minus 30 falls in the fourth quadrant, where only cos is positive, so sine becomes negative sine 30. Now bottom 180 plus 45, third quadrant. In the third quadrant, only tan is positive, so that becomes tan 45. Right, now that I have special angles, I can find their values. So cos 45 will always be 1 over square root 2, sine 45, 1 over square root 2. Right, some of you get stuck and use square root 2 over 2. Yes, sometimes your examiner see over, so just make sure with your teacher which one they're comfortable using. Remember, your calculator will always rationalize the denominators. Sine 30 would give me half, and tan 45, 1. There, square root 2 times square root 2, 2, 1 times 1, 1. Negative times positive, negative. So I have minus half, which gives me minus 1. Right, so hope you follow. Let's look at the next problem. Right, this one looks relatively simple. So generally, as I said, there's always an angle bigger than 360, so sine 570, cos 240, and tan 135. So for 570, because it's bigger than 360, I'm going to take the 360 plus whatever to get to 570. Alright, so 360 plus 210 gives me 570. 240 there, I have to introduce special angle, so that's 180 plus 60, 60 being a special angle. And for 135, 180 minus 45, with 45 being a special angle. Right, so there I'm left with sine 210. 10 can be written as 180 plus 30. There cos 180 plus 60. falls in the second quadrant, on the third quadrant. Third quadrant cos is negative, so it becomes negative cos 45. 180 minus 45 falls in the second quadrant. Tan is negative there, but that negative times this negative will give me positive tan 45. 180 plus 30 falls in third quadrant. In third quadrant, the tan is positive, so it becomes negative sine 30. So negative sine 30 minus cos 60, and the tan 45 will always be 1. I always joke and say, if you turn at a 45 degrees angle, you'll only get to 1 out of 10. Right? You don't get a full 10. But yeah. Negative sine 30 gives me negative half cos 60. Then negative half plus 1. So minus half is minus 1. Minus plus 1 gives you 0, right? So hope you follow, understand. Let's look at the last problem. Sorry for keeping you so long, but I hope I'm keeping you excited and learning. Right, so we have number 5, tan 315 minus cos 1020 sine 150 plus tan minus 135 degrees. So special angle 360 minus 45, because it's in the fourth quadrant. 1020, it's what, 2.5 rotations, so 360 plus 360 gives me 720. So if I say 1020 minus 720 comes cos 300. Sine 150 is the same as saying sine 180 minus 30, and tan negative 135 would basically become negative tan 135. We take the negative angle as being in the fourth quadrant. So 360 minus 45, fourth quadrant. Fourth quadrant, tan is negative, so that becomes negative tan 45. 300 degrees, fourth quadrant, so that would be written as 360 minus 60 in the fourth quadrant, 60 being a special angle. Sine 180 minus 30, that falls in the second quadrant, so sine is positive, sine 30. And 135, 180 minus 45, because that's in the second quadrant. So tan 45, by now I assume you know is 1. Cos 360 minus 60, that falls in the fourth quadrant. Cos is positive, but that positive times that negative stays negative cos 60. Sine 30 is half, and here 180 minus 45, second quadrant. Only sine is positive there, so tan become negative. Negative times negative gives me positive tan 45. So on top now I have minus 1, the cos of 60, minus half. At the bottom half plus tan 45, which is 1. Minus 1 minus half gives me minus 1.5, or minus 3 over 2, whichever way you want to write it. And 1 plus half gives me 1.5, or 3 over 2. Anything divided by itself is 1. Negative divided by positive is negative. So hope you follow, hope you understand. This is the second way we will test you in exam. Right, so you'll get both problems in grade 11. Right, continue practicing, work hard, and most of all, like, share, and subscribe. Right, once you subscribe, you can stay up to date with all the lessons I'm loading up. Right, wish you nothing but the best.